Quick greetings. And yes, it seems that we're on a roll this week. Um, so I'm going to try to keep the memento momentum going. In my last video, I said we would read about Chief Powhatan, but I think I kind of want to read about the Powhatan Confederacy. We don't hear anything about that confederacy, and this is why I want to read about it. There's just something going on, and I feel it's meant to discard the the importance of the Powhatans being the first Indians that the English encountered. That's significant, but it's just it just gets swept under some rug or something. So I just thought we need to talk about it. It's being overshadowed by the Iroquois Confederacy. Why is the first group of Indians not significant in the talk about Indians? Why? How does that work? So let's look at the Powhatan Confederacy and see what we can find. I just look for articles that I think are significant. That's the way I'm doing it. And so let us read about this. Okay. Oh, this is the Powhatan Treaty. Okay. Pardon. It refers to the Confederacy, but it's the treaty. Okay. My bad. And that's what I said we would look at a treaty, or, well, in this case, we're going to read about the treaty. And it's called the Powhatan Treaty, October 1646. Let me see something. Because I did read about broken treaties, but I realized this is from 1778. So this isn't early enough. And I was wondering why Powhatan Indians weren't mentioned at all. So I'm glad I didn't post that video, because I would like to go further. So now where is my, yeah, I have a lot of Powhatan stuff there, because I'm just looking to gather information on the Powhatans, okay? Because I feel like we're not hearing about Algonquins, Powhatans, not so much either, you know. So let's read. You probably started reading as I'm pontificating. The Powhatan Treaty of October 1646. This information is from the Virginia Memory Project, and the website is nativeheritageproject.com. Okay, so how many pages is this? This is 4 pages, not so bad. We shouldn't take too long if I don't pontificate too much. Okay. So again, before I start, I just want to say I don't want to start with, we talk about the Constitution, right? But before the Constitution, when we were Indians, these are the kind of documents. So we want to kind of dredge these up because in seeking our redress, we want to just get an idea of what were the contracts that we had, you know? Now, the contract of the Constitution is more of a contract with the foreigner. We're mentioned, but we are considered to have a separate government. If you read how the Constitution refers to us, it's not saying anything about us except that we're not taxed, because why that is because the states were on our territories. And when I say territories, I'm not talking about the English, British colonizer version of the territory. I'm just saying that's why we were mentioned, I believe, partly because we were mixed in still in the states, but we were not supposed to be enumerated with the immigrants. We were supposed to be left alone. And that might be somewhat the predicament we will have today if we claim our sovereignty. In other words, anywhere we live, we're not supposed to be taxed. Now, you got us all off of our land, right? But now, as it stands, wherever we are, you know, we're still Indians. So we're still Indians, not taxed, and we should not be in your system. And you can't call us wards of the state because we're not in your system, because this is our land. Now, you could call a foreigner a ward of the state, but you cannot call an Indian a ward of the state. Why? Because we got stuff like this that has been going on. And with this forces of the corporation breaking many of these treaties. So you're just trying to leave me without any protections, any footing. You are basically ignoring Indians. And you think that that will, and it did work, that will force us to just assimilate into your system because we don't have a structure. And with so many of our Indians looking to make corporations, well, that fits right into the corporation's plan. Incorporate. Be a little product of us so that we can dominate you. We need to start thinking of this kind of thing, because in this, we will still be entitled to freedoms and resources apart from anything owned by or anything that has been confiscated by the corporation. The corporation is acting like there's no more Indians. And those Native Americans, I don't know why we even talk about them. They are not sovereign. They are creations of the corporation. They will never be sovereign. They will have that federal tribal sovereignty, which, as we read in a previous video, is not sovereignty at all. We Indians are the only ones entitled to real legitimate sovereignty. So I think I'm finished pontificating. In 1646, 2 years after Openakanago, oh boy, I should take time to practice these words before I start reading. In 1646, 2 years after Opekanakana, Opekanakana ordered coordinated attacks on English settlements that killed about 500 people. The government of the colony, that is what they are. That is what the federal corporation is, the government of colonies. You see? That's all they were supposed to be. We were supposed to have our own system that had nothing to do with this. And that's what we have to go back to get our sovereignty. We cannot incorporate within the government here of the colony, which is a corporation. We did give the corporation guidelines And the Declaration of Independence also told the government, the corporation, that we're not little, corporations. But they went ahead and made us that anyway, right? Okay. So, um, the government of the colony at Necotawans, Necotawans, on behalf of the Powhatan tribes, negotiated a treaty that ended hostilities between the remnant of the Powhatan and English Virginia. Later in the year, the General Assembly enacted the treaty into law and adopted other laws to enforce its terms. So right there, a treaty is telling you we were not part of the corporation. If we are now trying to be part of the corporation, we are not going back to what we were as sovereign nation Indians. That's why we're looking at a treaty. We have to be reminded that if we were supposed to be, if we were supposed to be little franchises under the jurisdiction of the corporation, we would never have had treaties. We started out with treaties. Although they broke them, no, never mind. We can call them to task for that. But I do think that they've proven to us that they're not interested in respecting us. That doesn't mean we give up. That doesn't mean we, conform to what they want. We have to go back into our history, not theirs, to find who we were and pick up from there. Being a corporation is just using the same tool that the corporation uses to make people slaves. And little by little, when we are a corporation, again, the offspring will duplicate the parent. The parent is a United States corporation. Little by little, we will conform to their model of slavery after we use the model they use, which is incorporation. So as sovereigns, we demand access to our resources, but we also have to demand access to trade and commerce. And I think at this point in history, we don't need protection on the high seas. We need to have Indians that are experienced Navy persons to do our own trade, and we'd have a whole system. We have to create our own money system, all of that. But we have access to our gold, somehow we're going to have to. That has to, again, when the Jews got their reparations, they got gold backed currency as well as raw material resources. So this whole landmass has our raw material resources, and this government has to let go of all of that. They don't have the superior authority over our resources as American Indians. And that's going to be really, tough for them. But if they're truly, they're not, but unfortunately, again, injustice was never meant to be the final say. So they've done very wrong by us. And that's just a fact. The fact that we don't know who we are, and the fact that we have to go through all of this trouble to dig up records that they purposely have made mostly unavailable. It's like on, some kind of checkered checkerboard you have to go through to figure out your ancestry. It's all very choppy, and you find, for instance, I have some records, census records of my family from 1870. And how do you have a census without an address? So it doesn't say where these people lived. It says they were on some street. For instance, Kale Street. Okay, which house on Kale Street? So little things like that let you see things were left out. It's as if they knew that at some point we look through these records and try to figure out where our ancestors lived exactly. So I have like two solid census records, but neither one of them have a specific address, just a street name. How? What did they didn't put addresses on? How do you find out where they lived? It's just an example of how things were done purposely to disconnect us from our past and our legacy and our birthright. The government of the colony of Necotawans on behalf, the government of the colony and Necotawans on behalf of the Powhatan tribes negotiated a treaty that ended hostilities between the remnant of the Powhatan and the English Virginians. Later in the year, the General Assembly enacted the treaty into law and adopted other laws to enforce its terms. The treaty in 1646 placed Indians in Eastern Virginia under the control of the King of England. So a treaty between two nations placed the king in control of Indians. In theory, the control of the King of England, which in theory provided them protection from other tribes and also from encroaching settlers. So the King of England is going to protect the Powhatans from other tribes. So they had firepower of some sort. That's what the Powhatans was hoping to get with what I read with was it John Roth? Was it John Roth? But they never got it. It's like they kept bringing them other things, but not weapons. So the English did not provide Powhatans with weaponry they needed, but they did provide Iroquois with weaponry, plenty. Okay, so the enemy of my enemy is my friend, is what the English were going by. They didn't give weaponry to Powhatans, Algonquins, but they did give it to Iroquois. So again, the Treaty of 1646 placed Indians in Eastern Virginia under the control of the King of England, which in theory provided them protection from other tribes and also from encroaching settlers. The treaty imposed many restrictions on the Indians. So a treaty imposes restrictions? I'm trying to establish that these treaties, although they help to show our status as sovereigns, they're showing that you have to treaty with us. But how would it be that they impose a treaty should be mutually beneficial, you would think. So then what is the idea of these restrictions? So I'm of the mind that a treaty was just something brought here by the colonizer. Even the naming, a treaty. Who calls it that? I don't think we Indians did. Didn't treat us to nothing much. It was more like a tricky than a treaty. Okay. The treaty imposed many restrictions on the Indians. It confined them to land north of the York River, prohibited them from interfering with English settlement south of that river, and required them to communicate with the government by messengers while dressed in distinctive clothing. So they was making the Indians dress a certain way too. That's a treaty. That's a treaty. That's what a treaty do. It just seems like there is something up with a treaty. I think the fact that it's given or created or the name of it is something that the English came up with makes it their document more so than an Indian. And so that's why they don't have to honor it. I created it, I can trash it. You were dumb enough to believe that I want to work with you, so I'm going to play up to your dumbness, and we'll make a little piece of paper because we need to have you chill while we figure out great and wonderful ways to take you off your land. So the treaty imposed many restrictions on the Indians. It confined them to the land north of the York River, prohibited them from interfering with English settlement south of that river, and required them to communicate with the government by messengers while dressed in distinctive clothing. The treaty also required the Indians to return all hostages, including Negroes. That's so interesting. Um, Hostages, including Negroes. Well, the Negroes are the Indians. So this is just, propaganda. It's propaganda, I do believe. No. We also required the nations to return on. What they could be talking about is the Negro penis. That's what they would be talking about. These were those that were probably escaping England and running to be with the copper-colored Indians. So they're referring to them as Negroes, right? Because they're not Indians. They're from Europe. They would be the Negroes. Negropeans. That's who they have to be talking about. Now, the Negroes look just like the Indians. So apparently, some of the Negropeans were trying to find asylum with the Indians. And the only reason the Indians would take them is because they look just like them. So the treaty also required the Indians to return all hostages, including Negropeans, I'm going to say, and turn in their guns. See, again, we were being lumped together with the Negroes and called Negroes because Negroes are not African. Negroes are European, blacks. I mean, they would have been those who were kidnapped with Columbus. But at that point, from 1492 to 1607 or whenever, that's two generations, right? Not that many, but enough that they are effectively European. It's like, what, 200 years? About? Let's do the math. Okay. Just rough math. I don't know. Let's see how many years that is. Okay. Where's my calculator? Okay. Um, let's say 1640, maybe 1640. We'll take that time. 1646 minus 154 years. So 1646, the difference between 1646 and 1492 is 154 years. Is that enough time to forget who you are as a culture? 154 years is enough time to be Europeanized, you would say? Let me see. If they first arrived in around 1607, let me see. Uh, let's do 16. Uh, 1607. Under 15 years. Okay, okay. All right. Okay, 1607 minus 1492 is 115. So that's yeah, yeah. That's long enough, I think, to become a different culture, you know. So the treaty also required the Indians to return all hostages, including Negropeans, and turn in their guns. And it required, as an acknowledgement and tribute for such protection, the said Necotawans and his successors are to pay unto the king's governor the number of 20 beaver skins at the going away of geese yearly. This treaty is shitty, y'all. So the Indian and his successors are to pay unto the king's governor. Why is an Indian paying tribute to a king? This is not your land, king. You're supposed to be paying. See, if this is what a treaty was, man, this is some shit, okay? This is some shit. So that's why I feel like, now say the king says one day, take your beaver skins, I don't want them no more. That's a way to begin to break a treaty. I'm going to do what I said I wasn't going to do right here. But meanwhile, all through the treaty, you got to do all of this. That ain't no treaty. That don't sound. It's a conqueror using a treaty to appease people that he still intends to disenfranchise, steal their stuff. So we get a look at a treaty, huh? This is the Powhatan Treaty, and these were the first Indians to encounter the English. If this is the first treaty, an example of the very first treaty, don't seem like they got much better, right? A treaty that ends up having the people who are being encroached upon to pay a king. I guess this is just not what I imagined of a treaty. No, no. So again, the only reason why we're looking at this is to show and prove that we as the real Indians had a position of authority enough that we had to go into a treaty. Nations go into treaties, but it's looking like they had the upper hand in this treaty. And I guess in all treaties, again, that's why they broke them all. Okay. And then they don't even go by them no more. They paper genocide our asses so bad, paper genocided our asses so bad that they said, we don't need no treaties. They're our slaves already. We ain't treatying with them niggers. Okay, so from that time on, in Virginia and also elsewhere in the colonies, governments and Indian leaders negotiated treaties that allowed people of European origin or ancestry to settle in areas that the Indians had formerly occupied. Often, a part of concluding periods of open hostility or organized warfare. The treaties established a legal doctrine that Indians did not bear the same relationship to the colonial governments that free white men enjoyed. Often a part of concluding periods of open hostility or organized warfare, the treaties established a legal doctrine that Indians did not bear the same relationship to the colonial governments that free white men enjoyed. Well, they wouldn't. Free white men are what came from Britain and wherever they came from in Europe. So, of course, the Indians wouldn't be part of that, right? But that's why they're making a treaty. The idea is they're a separate nation, although they're being punked as hell. So we didn't want, uh, you know, we didn't want the same relationship that free white men had because we were free sovereign Indians. The white men are immigrants on our land. They don't have the same freedoms we have. So whatever their government is giving them ain't got nothing to do with us. In some respects, colonial laws and practices treated Indians as foreign nations. Well, we were foreign, but they're the ones that came to our land, so they could have left if they didn't want to be around foreigners. We didn't come to their land. They came to ours. They were the foreigners. But so much of this trickery and it's like trading places. So they start to like have some kind of mental schizophrenia that makes them think that we're foreign. No, baby, you came to my country. You have a whole country over there that you're running from. Okay? You're the foreign. But they got it twisted every time, it seems. In in other respects, as when Indians resided in or near European settlements, they were not accorded the full rights of free white men. Well, this article is a little stupid because you're not giving us anything. That is for your little bunch. I'm starting to think that perhaps the Negroes that came, I'm thinking it had to be that even though blacks and whites were dumped here, I'm thinking that the Negroes were seen as slaves to these white Europeans, but only in America would they do that. I think in Europe, the blacks and the whites were subject to King James, who was a black man. So, but I think when they come here, the look is to eventually make us like we're the Negropeans. So they might have come here, I'm thinking, with the Negroes being like some kind of servants of the white you know, immigrants. Maybe that's what happened because they definitely wanted to spread that look to us, you know. Okay, in other respects, as when Indians resided in or near European settlements, they were not accorded the full rights of free white men. We were feeding you. So you wouldn't have nothing if we didn't help you to eat or live on our land. So you didn't have nothing we wanted. We really wanted you gone. So don't try to make it like We wanted to be part of that bullshit. We wanted you gone, but you wouldn't leave. Look, free white men were subject to a king. So we had more sovereignty than those free white men, okay? They were subject to a king, a black king. Just like always, no matter what level they were in their homeland, when a white person came to America, he was automatically elevated to the highest status that America, the corporation, was offering, which is white. But in his own country, that same white man would have been just as discriminated as any other people dealing with discrimination of some sort. So it's only in America that the white man is really set up to be the top of the food chain, you might say, you know. But again, in Britain, they were under a black king. That's just the facts, okay? Get it. Get the book. The Memoirs of John Mackey, when he's spying on the court of King James and everybody is black. So these were the people, these white men were the people that a king sent over. And we read about a king earlier, right? So he was king of those white men as well as the black. In the case of the Treaty of 1646, the affected tribes were known as tributary nations because they were required to pay tribute to the victors who had imposed the terms of the treaty. That is validation of what I have been coming to conclude. The terms of a treaty were imposed on American Indians. That is why the treaties were broken. The only thing I kept wondering was, where did they get the authority to break the treaty? They provided the treaty. It's a document they created. It was imposed on American Indians. So it was like signing something with invisible ink, because it was not worth anything. It just gave them authority. Indians, lesson number 1. We do not sign anything that a foreigner is imposing on us, because it's going to make it seem like we're living in peace. They're about to break that document because they made it. We've got to learn the order of authority. We have to we have to make our IDs. We have to make our birth certificates if we want them. We have to make our driver's licenses if we want. But what they're doing to us now with all their paperwork is exactly what these treaties were doing, putting us under their jurisdiction. So creating a corporation, again, we're starting with an entity that was brought here by the colonizer. So the model of that entity was not created by us. We did not create the corporation. We did not create the model of a corporation. That's what the East Indian Company, that was the first corporation. And it wasn't from us. It was on our land, but it wasn't from us. So what we would have to find is, what is the first corporation an Indian ever made? And I don't think we'll find any. Because every corporation that has been here was from a foreigner. So when we duplicate what a foreigner made, the foreigner has authority. This is what happened with the treaties. I'm going to highlight that because it's what I've been slowly becoming more. I didn't know. I'm trying to figure out what gave them the authority to break the treaties. I know one of it was just erasing us, so then there's no Indians to treaty with because they're now black. But something else was going on. And what it is we didn't really make the terms of these treaties. We didn't. It was like the colonizer going through the motions of tomfuckery to appear that he's doing something in a civil manner. But the truth is, because it's his document, he knows that he does not have to honor it because it's his. We have to make the documents. But again, it seems like treaties are part of something that happens when we're dealing with a losing nation. Is that what we just read? Let's look. In the case of the Treaty of 1646, the affected tribes were known as tributary nations. Maybe I did read where Anna said tribes pay tribute. So that's another word spell. It's something that we never created, but is applied to us, like Negro, colored, black, and all of that. So if they call us tribe, then that means they expect to get tribute. My grandmother used the term clans when she was writing out our family's genealogy. She used the term clan. So just by calling us a tribe, they have dominion because tribes pay tribute. Okay, again, in the case of the Treaty of 1646, the affected tribes were known as tributary nations because they were required to pay tribute. How do you come to my land and I'm paying you is beyond me. That's why you know this is funky and foul fuckery. If this is the strength of a treaty, this is some bullshit. This is really some bullshit. That's why we lost. We were never supposed to treaty with these motherfuckers. They came uninvited, and any documentation was bullshit because they were setting the terms of those documents. This is what we just read. The tribes were known as tributary nations because they were required to pay tribute to the victors who had imposed the term. So victors impose the terms of a treaty, not winners. I think that highlighted thing, we should all study that, ponder that, and know why treaties were broken. And what a treaty was. It was something imposed on Indians. As a result, Indians were exempted from taxation. Wait a minute. Now, this is all before the Constitution, the 1787 Constitution. So, again, we talked about exempted, right? The Constitution does not say that we're tax exempt. It says Indians not taxed. So this word exempted from taxation is not the same as Indians not taxed. As a result, Indians were exempted from taxation. Well, they're paying tribute, right? That's like a tax, baby. You can call it whatever you need to, but we were being taxed. We were required to pay. We didn't have a choice. And even in the original Constitution, I believe taxation without, in other words, you had to agree. What's the word? You had to consent to being taxed. These Indians, they were required. They didn't consent to, it wasn't a consent type of thing. It was required. So as a result, Indians were exempted from taxation. That don't even make sense. If you're saying we were the losers and the victors imposed the terms of the treaty, I would say that we would be taxed. Anyway, as a result, Indians were exempted from taxation, which in the popular mind was associated with the annual tribute of beaver skins paid to the government. So, in other words, either way they're paying, right? Beaver skins was their form of, I don't know what this is saying. Page 1 of the treaty is shown below. Unfortunately, it is not a signed document. So why isn't it signed? The treaty between the English and the Powhatan Indians of October 1646. Another reason why they don't want, well, I guess they said slavery started in 1607. But like anyway, no, we would have been still here being called Negroes at that time. Okay, so oh, okay, so this is the treaty down here. See, it says be it enacted by, so then they reiterating it down here. So this is the actual wording of the treaty that we're about to read. Okay, be it enacted by this grand assembly that the arties of peace following between the inhabitants of this colony and Necoatawans, king of the Indians, be duly and inviolably observed upon the penalty within I don't know, within Mencone 5 as fall imps, that Necatawans do acknowledge to hold his kingdom from the King's Majesty of England, and that his successor be appointed or confirmed by the King's governors from time to time. So it's like the King has to appoint, he will be allowed to appoint the successors of the Indian king from time to time. And on the other side, this assembly, on the behalf of the colony, does undertake to protect him or them against any rebels or other enemies whatsoever. So they're saying they're going to protect the Indians. Yeah, well, that's what you got to say, right? And that's all the Indians were. So in other words, you going to be our little bitch. It's like when you go to prison, right? Now, I've never been to prison, but I've seen the movies and the documentaries. So Big Daddy is going to protect you, but you his little bitch. That's what I'm reading here. That's what I'm going to protect you. But you got to get me this, you got to get me that, you got to bend over, you got to do that, you got to do this. This is a treaty, y'all. This is the shit we was dealing with. So it is a treaty. I'm sorry. Yeah, it is a treaty. Okay. This is what it is. So they break something like this, which is already bad. And it just gets worse. It's not like the treaty was really favoring us, right? If this is an example, this is the first treaty. I feel like it only went downhill from there. I don't know. Maybe the Iroquois got better deals. I don't know. We'd have to look at one of the treaties, I guess. Okay, so the king is going to protect them against any rebels or other enemies. They were supposed the Powhatans were hoping that they would be protected from the Iroquois. You know, that was the tribe they were always at odds with. And as an acknowledgement and tribute for such protection, the said Necotowans and his successors are to pay unto the king's governor the number of 20 beaver skins at the going away of geese yearly. That it shall be free for the said Necotowans and his people to inhabit and hunt on the north side of York River without any interruption. They are laying out the term. What I'm seeing is a king setting out how this is going down. And the other king just, you better agree, this is where you can hunt on your land. Best not come over here. I'm going to protect you, my little bitch. You just bring me them beavers. Now go on and sit down. I'm kind of wishing I never thought to look at a treaty now. Oh, it's like it's just everywhere we look, we are getting fucked, and we want to be part of this corporation. You don't think that they have a determination to continue to do just what they did to our ancestors? They have no respect for us. There is no making nice with a corporation. Its very function, its very origin is like a curse to our people. That's not going to protect us. It's going to make us complicit in their crime, for one. And it just creates Oh, oh, we become the little bitch of the corporation. They are having us report to them what we're doing. Indians don't have to do that shit. They're gonna keep, we have to tell them what our meetings were about. Does Russia have to tell this government what their meetings are about? So it's not anything to do with sovereignty, and you can't work your way to sovereignty from a corporate footing. They're categorically opposed to each other. There's no, like, sovereignty really is not something that requires all this work. What it does require is knowledge of your position and a rejection of any corporate statutes and codes, because those were not meant for living men and women. They're meant for corporate entities. We have another set of laws that guarantee our our position, unalienable, God-given. And when I say God, I'm not talking about the corporation, because sometimes they see themselves as God. My drink get warm. That it shall be free for said Necatowans and his people to inhabit and hunt on the north side of York River. They are just bossing up on our land. It's incredible. Now again, this kind of shit was denounced by the Pope when he denounced the doctrine of discovery. But we have to know that this kind of shenanigans takes place when Indians are seen as inferior because they are heathen. And a king like this, who's connected to the church in some way, shape, or form, that's where he's getting all his authority. That's who put the crown on his head and announced that he's a king. This is why he can take all of this. Now, the doctrine of discovery would say this king had no footing, no authority to do what he did. It was wrong. So the north side of the river, as well as the south side of the river, would go right back to England. And since the corporation is always talking about sending people home, wouldn't they have to go home too? They're not doing anything that supports us as Indians. They've done everything they could possibly think of to ignore that we exist, to reclassify us, and to disconnect us from any even federal documents. Like these things are not easy to find. I can find a white family from 1700s with my family's name, but I cannot go get past 18 something with my family, because all the shenanigans, calling them white, calling them mulatto, calling them black, misspelling their names, not putting their address. Yet there's a white family with like about six names of people that are in my family. And it's like they have documents going back to the 1700s. So someone made sure that their shit goes far back, but mine's is just, it'll happen. So that's how you see the purposeful omission of anything that would tie us to our birthright. But I'm sorry, Europeans, they have records on our landmass that go back to colonization, the beginning of colonization, basically, right? Their shit is all nice and lined up. Ours is all misspelled and wrong dates and shit. And it's like, oh my God, this is crazy. But somehow, all of that, I think, can work to prove the effort that was made to confuse us and divorce us from our birthright. That's how you steal a birthright. Okay, so uh so the Nicotawans and his people are allowed to inhabit and hunt on the north side of York River without any interruption from the English, provided that if hereafter it shall be thought fit by the governor and council to permit any English to inhabit from Poropatanki downwards, that first Nicotawans be acquainted therewith. What? This shall be free for the said Nicotawans and the people to inhabit and hunt on the north side of York River without any interruption from the English, provided that if hereafter it shall be thought fit by the governor and council to permit any English it sounds like it, provided it shall be thought fit. So it does sound like you can hunt on the north side as long as the governor sees fit. What? It's very conditional, is what I'm getting. And the governor can change something about your allowance to inhabit and hunt on the north side of York River. That Nicotawans and his people leave free that tract of land between York River and James River from the falls of both the rivers to Keequotan to the English to inhabit on, and that neither he, the said Nicotawans, nor any Indians do repair to or make any abode upon the said tract of land, upon pain of death. Because this treaty is lethal, huh? So they will kill the Indians if they uh, live on their land. It shall be lawful for any person to kill any such Indian. And in case any such Indian or Indians being seen upon the said tract of land shall make an escape, that the said Necatawan shall upon demand deliver that said Indian or Indians to the Englishman upon knowledge had of him or them, unless such Indian or Indians be sent upon a message from the said Necatawa. This is very threatening, this treaty, to the Indians. And to the intent to avoid all injury to such a messenger, and that no ignorance may be pretended to such as shall offer any outrage. What? If it is thought fit and thereby enacted that the badge worn by a messenger, or in case there shall be more than one by one of the company, be a coat of striped stuff, which is to be left by the messenger from time to time, so often as he shall return at the places appointed for their coming in. So the messenger got to come dressed a certain way to avoid injury. So the king is bossing up on the Indian in this treaty. Why are they able to do that? I think it has something to do with firepower. I think it has something to do with having guns, better firearms, I think. Because that's what they gave to the Iroquois that they did not give as plentifully to the Algonquin. So this is why I think this arrogant king is able to boss up on these Indians. A treaty is made to make it seem that the Indians are somehow causing harm, and that they have to talk to Indians in this kind of manner. And in other words, we're the civil ones. You're the heathen, that we are allowed to take your land due to the doctrine of discovery. Yeah, it was only, so in other words, from the time the doctrine of discovery was put in effect, 1492 or thereafter, it was still in effect until the Pope denounced it this year. So in the 1600s, they were also going by the doctrine of discovery. So that's why I think this king is able to talk with such authority, because he has the backing of the church. And he's of the mind that he is sort of granted authority by God to look at these Indians as if they're just in the way. You come to a foreigner's land and you treat them like they're in your way. It's just all kinds of wrong, you know? And if I may say this again, I've tried to say it before, ADRIP and UNDRIP were not created by American Indians. If we don't understand the order of authority by now, that which creates a document is that which is the owner of that document. Just like here, you're going to fall under that entity's jurisdiction, not yours. So ADRIP and UNDRIP They can't protect us because they were not written by us. It is something imposed on us or being offered us to grab. And when you grab it, it's like you having to jump into the sea jurisdiction to get it. Our rights come from the land. The United Nations or the UN, both of these entities, they are corporations. They can't grant you sovereignty. They can only mimic it, but all the while, they created it, not American Indians. So ultimately, they are still taking us to a place of subjugation under a sea jurisdiction, and whoever created that document. Indians did not create hatred or UNDRIP. We have to start creating our documents and standing on our Indian sovereignty, point blank, period. So we have to write these documents up. That's how we get the authority. As long as we draft them, as long as we write them. That's all they did. This king did. He wrote up this treaty and it benefited only him because he can do that because he wrote it. We can't be signing things that other people created, y'all. That's the name of the corporate game. And that's why corporate will never really serve us. The whole entity is a foreign creation, is what I'm saying. Anything called a corporation, that's not even a word from Indians. The corporation is a creation of Europe. Not American Indians. We didn't have any corporations on this land. We did not have any corporations on the land until foreigners came with it. If we make that our foundation, we are building on a foreigner's foundation. We have to make a whole new entity, and we have the right to do it by virtue of our birthright. Whatever we want to make it, it shall be honored. So we got a little more to go, and then I think I'll call it a night. Getting tired. And it is further enacted that in case any English shall repair contrary to the articles agreed upon to the said north side of York River, such persons so oft offending, being lawfully convicted, be adjudged as felons, provided that this article shall not extend to such persons who by stress of weather are forced upon the said land. Provided also, and it is agreed by the said Necatalans, that it may be lawful for any Englishman to go over to the said north side of having occasion to fall timber trees or cut sedge, so as the said persons have warrant for their so doing under the hand of the governor, provided also, notwithstanding anything in this act to the contrary, that it shall be free and lawful for any English whatsoever between this present date and the 1st of March next to kill and bring away what cattle or hogs that they can by means kill or take upon the said north side of the said river. I don't, I don't know this. I don't know what this is saying, but I know enough to know that this is the king doing all the talking for himself and for said Necatowans. Necatowans didn't write this. It's very clear to me that the Indian didn't write this. He's agreeing to it. What part did he write? None of it. So maybe we can say that a treaty has to be, I would say, a real treaty for it to be good. Both sides have to write what they want. Then they come together and decide how to negotiate what they want. But this seems very one-sided to me. And it's more like telling Necatowans, because he's the one that needs protection. In other words, the Indians are looking for protection. So the King of England is acting like Big Daddy, like, okay, I'll protect you. But you're gonna have to do this, this, that, this, that, this, and that, this. If this is a taste of what a treaty is, this, ooh, almost wish I didn't read it. Almost, it's like I just didn't think it was like this. I guess I never looked, at the wording of a treaty, you know. So, why is this such? Okay. So it's just the ins and outs of who's allowed to go on the north side that belongs to the Indian. And it's saying that they'll prosecute an Englishman, you know, as long as it doesn't apply to persons that are forced to be on the Indian land by weather or stress of weather, So they won't prosecute someone who was forced to be on the land by weather, and also for someone who is just trying to cut a tree on their side and it falls on to the north side. I think is what I'm reading. So they won't be in trouble or whatever. Notwithstanding, what does it say? Have warrant handlers are doing so under the hand. Okay. So also, if they have a warrant from the governor, the Indians can't. It sounds like the Indians can't say nothing. They just get a warrant to be on the north side, right? I don't know. It's talking about killing animals and needing to go on the north side. So he's making sure that his people, have a way to get to the north side. But you're not reading so much about Indians getting to the south side. And it is further enacted that neither will the said Necatowans or any of his people do frequent come come in to hunt or make an abode nearer to the English plantation than the limits of Yapping, the Blackwater, and from head of the Blackwater upon a straight line to the old Monacan town upon such pain and penalty as aforesaid. Neither for the said do frequent. So it's just telling them where they can go, and they better on upon penalty of pain. And it is further ordered enacted that if any English do enter any Indian or Indians, or do conceal any Indian or Indians, that shall come with the said limits. Such persons being lawfully convicted, therefore, shall suffer death, as in case of felony, without benefit of clergy, excepted such as shall be authorized thereto by virtue of this act. Wondering if the Indians even understood this English, because I sure as hell almost don't. Did they understand the terms of these treaties? And I would think that a treaty should be written in both languages of both nations, so to ensure that they do understand what this shit is saying, you know. But a treaty, it just seemed like it's something from it's European made. Uh, okay. Oh God. And it is further enacted that the said Necatowns and all his people, I'm sorry, and his people shall, upon all occasions of message to the governor for trade, do repair unto the Fort Royal only on the north side, at which place. So it's constantly talking about the Indians not coming to the south side. That's all it's talking about. Okay. That seems it's just you can't come over here. Just don't come over here. You can't come over here. You can't come over here. Just don't come over here. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. And it is further enacted that the said Necatowans and his people shall, upon all occasions of message to the governor for trade, do repair unto the Fort Royal only on the north side, at which place they are to receive the aforesaid badges, which shall show them to be messengers. So they have to wear badges. This king is doing full king uh sonship, on these Indians. Ugh, this is so incredible to read. This is such bullshit. Uh, so they have to wear a special badge so that the king won't feel threatened. I mean, we don't hear anything about the English having to wear a badge, right? Or did they say that? I don't know. This English is so different, so I don't know. Freed, so the badges will show them to be messengers and therefore freed from all injury in their passage to the governor. Because in other words, if they're not wearing this badge, they might be injured upon pain of death, pain of death to any person or persons whatsoever that shall kill them. The badge being worn by one of the company, and in case of any other affront, the offense to be punished according to the quality thereof, and the trade admitted as aforesaid to the said Necatowans and his people with the commander of the said fort only on the north side. And it is further thought, this trifling ass treaty, and is further thought fit and act upon any occasion of message to the governor or trade. The said Necatowans and his people, the Indians, do repair to Fort Henry's Appomattox Fort, or to the house of Captain John. Oh, they're gonna do repairs. They said they're gonna do repair to fort. To repair. So they like fixing their shit, like repairing their shit, their forts. Or the house of Captain John Floyd, and to no other place or places of the south side of the river, at which places the aforesaid badges of striped stuff are to be and remain. It's not like the Indians be doing repairs. They expect them to do repairs. Anyway, and it is further, holds further, and it is further. Shut the fuck up. This is just further bullshit. And it is further thought fit and enacted that Neckartowans do with all convenience bring in the English prisoners and all such negroes and guns, which are yet remaining either in the possession of himself or so now he's telling them to bring all their weaponry. And it is further thought fit. It's thought fit by who? Your trifling ass? And enacted that Neckartowans do, with all convenience, bring in the English prisoners and all such negroes and guns which are yet remaining either in the possession of himself or any Indians, and that he redeliver upon demand such Indian servants as have been taken prisoners, and shall hereafter run away. In case such Indian or Indian shall be found within the limits of his dominions, provided that such Indian or Indians be under the age of 12 years at their running away. And it is further enacted and consented that such Indian children as shall or will freely and voluntarily come in and live with any English may remain without breach of the so they want the children of the articles of peace, provided they be not above 12. So they want children under 12. So everything benefits the colonizer. Can the Indians raise the colonizers' children? Why are the colonizers looking for children under 12 years old? This treaty is some bullshit, okay? It is some A1 bullshit. And it is further thought fit and enacted that the several commanders of the forts and places as aforesaid unto which the said Indians as off. How many times are you gonna use aforesaid? Are admitted to repair in case of trade or message do forthwith provide the said coats in manner striped as aforesaid. I'm traumatized by this treaty, y'all. I mean, again, it. Everything that could be done to disenfranchise us was done. This treaty, I don't know how Indians feel about this. it's 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 appalling. It's it's avarice, arrogance. It's so this king is going to protect these Indians, but it's like he's so busy talking about how they can't come on certain territory. Why are you protecting them then? You don't sound like you don't want to be bothered with them. So it would seem like if you're in a some kind of protectorate situation, that you are treated like kin of some sort. I don't get that at all from what I read, even though the English is fucked up. Uh, it just sounds like I'm the big dog. You're gonna do what I say. I'm gonna protect your ass, but I don't want you anywhere near me. And don't ever come on this territory as you the pain of death and la 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 la. And but bring your children. Oh my God, this is some sick shit. Okay, this is making these colonizers look twisted, yo. Ah, everything I read is just like it's relentlessly uh disturbing. That's the Powhatan Treaty of 1646. Yuck. I don't. Oh, Indians. Ooh, I know that there are enough of us on the land to effect a change for our people if we get on the same page. I feel like I say it a zillion times, but I just have to. Um, somewhere we have to have. We talk about entrepreneurship, right? Let's take it a step further. Let's do it without the corporation. That's a real entrepreneurship, because again, if we keep turning to the corporation to fund us and to approve of us and to give us certificates and articles of incorporation, whatever, we're just inviting them to stay here forever. And I think we have to think about what is best for our people. Do we want, it's like we're pushing out babies or whatever to be fodder for oppression, and we think that's okay. We don't want them to have the same kingly authority or queenly authority as that which has been imposed on us. So it's like we're agreeing to be slaves if we can't figure that we have to do this on our own, like have our own government, then we will always remain in a subservient position on our own land. I can't think of anything less appealing than that. It just makes me feel like we are agreeing for America to be in chains infinite, indefinite. We got woken up, and our first thought is to just become a corporation. That's what the ancestors want us to do. To use the same tools that were used and still are used against us. We're supposed to just Say, okay, my turn. Or are we supposed to really reach back and look at what our position would be if there were no corporations here? What would we create? If there was no corporate model here, what would we create? And so that means act like the corporation is not here. Go. Because if we use their tools, we're gonna have to pay the piper. How do you pay the piper? By being subject to them forever. Just by using their shit. Just becoming a corporation is using their model. It is extending a sea jurisdiction. There's been several Black corporations, right? Corporations don't change our status. They don't. They never have. They create a fictional playing ground. It's like putting on virtual reality goggles. I'm an Indian in virtual reality, but the problem is it's in virtual reality. It's not in reality. That's what the corporation gives you. You putting on their little metaverse graphic glasses or virtual reality glasses, and you see yourself being an Indian. But that's the Indian that the corporation created. You're playing on their playing field, the metaverse. We got to go back to the land. A corporation has nothing to do with land jurisdiction. A corporation is a vessel on the sea jurisdiction. Anything built on the sea jurisdiction is not of the land. It is not, it's actually more under a Moorish, we talk about being Moors and trying, not to be Moors. Nothing will make you a Moor quicker than being on the sea. Nothing will make you a Moor quicker than being in a sea jurisdiction. Every corporation, let's say it again together. Every corporation resides in a sea jurisdiction. When you enter a corporate vessel, you are no longer on the land. That is why it won't work for American Indians. I don't know how to say it any better than that. It's not a critique. It's an awareness. It's an awareness. It's not a diss. It's an awareness that we don't have. So sovereignty, what I wanted to say is that I think it would begin. What were we looking at earlier, Dustin? Oh, that treaty was the most depressing thing I think I've ever read. Okay, so I'm gonna share screen one more time. So we looked at common law last time. This wasn't a big blurb, but we want to establish that this is law of the land, not commerce. They did not say commercial codes are law of the land. That's law of the sea. Okay, so that's what we were looking at there. But what I kind of wanted to do was go back up to the charges against the king. This is where we would begin to reestablish our sovereignty. Our complaints are not against the king, but it is against a corporation that has made us its subject. So where is this? Come on now. Where is it? Okay. specific charges against the king. So Indians, I think this is a good model as well. We don't have to know all of their legalese. In fact, that is a language we should not be speaking. Common law is based on common sense. So all of these word tricks that are in commercial code, we don't have to use them. We talk plain, right? Because we're establishing that we are in common law. We're not in this intricate wordplay of commerce. What does it say up here? So we read the charges against the king. It's exactly what we're going through now. So let's read them one more time. Specific charges against the king. The history of the present king of Great Britain is a history of repeated usurpation. The history of us with the United States Corporation is a history of repeated usurpation. I say we use something like this because this is the main this is the kind of wording, this is the kind of document that it took to make people understand why we are reclaiming our sovereignty. We're being subject to repeated abuses, repeated usurpations. An example of a usurpation is how something that's meant or created for quote unquote people of color ends up not being available to quote unquote blacks. So even in their system, you know, aside from what they've done to us as Indians, what they're doing to this thing they created called blacks is it's a history of police brutality, a history of rights that are like now you see it, now you don't, like we read. So civil rights, they are always, we're always fighting for them because they're not unalienable. If they were unalienable, we wouldn't have to keep fighting for abortion rights or fighting for the rights, you know, arguing about the right to bear arms. There's no argument there. It's a guarantee in the 1787 Constitution. All this bullcrap and propaganda about there's too much gun violence. That has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. It's just bad policing. That's all. So it ends up being propaganda because they're trying to really make us forget unalienable rights, and their rights are always up for debate. Again, because they're not seen as God-given, they're Congress created. Okay, so this is something that Indians could draft up. The history of the President, United States Corporation, is a history of repeated usurpations, all having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over American Indians. To prove this, let facts be submitted to a candid world. The corporation has dissolved representative houses repeatedly for opposing with manly firmness their invasions on the rights of the people. So the way I would see that is, again, how our free speech, that is not up for debate. So when a pandemic hits and we are basically told to shut up and get a shot, that is invasion of our rights. The fact that we didn't have a choice. Things like the birth certificate, where we're basically signing over the rights of our babies. And so that is why, the state feels that it can tell you what school, whatever how your kid better go to school, public school. We never gave, I say it all the time because I'm so shocked at it myself. Congress that wasn't the 19 enumerated functions to start a board of education. So, yeah, so these these documents that had the effect of us waiving our constitutional rights, they are invasions on the rights of the people, our right to our sovereignty as Indians is being erased by erasing our history and our memory of anything that leads us to know who we are. So it has erected the corporation, United States Corporation, has erected a multitude of new officers and sent hither swarms of officers to harass our people and eat out their substance. So again, that would be reminiscent of the over 19 enumerated functions, new offices that Congress created for themselves, new duties that Congress created for themselves that, as Anna says, we have to pay for. So is that how our national debt goes crazy because we're paying for services we never asked you or contracted you to do or to provide? The U.S. corporation has kept among us in times of peace standing armies without the consent of our legislatures. This is just an example, right? But even though some of this stuff has not happened, it's where we're headed if we don't wake up and smell the coffee. You know, the U.S. corporation has affected to render the military independent of the superior to the civil power. Uh, so the military, like to render the military independent of and superior to. So it's making the military, it's like it doesn't have to go by any, but no authority of the people, right? The new United States corporation has combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution. This is a definitely yes. That's actual. Okay, combined with others to subject us to a jurisdiction foreign to our Constitution. This one we need to. I think this is the might be the definitive thing that happened to India. It's combined with others to like the Department of Census, the Department of Education, uh, places where we are subject to a foreign jurisdiction that is foreign to our Constitution. Being Black is foreign to our Constitution. Being colored is foreign to our Constitution. It's not mentioned. Being an Indian would not be foreign to our Constitution, but when we've been reclassified into other jurisdictions foreign to our Constitution and unacknowledged by our laws, giving his assent to their acts of pretended legislation. This is exactly what happened to us. We are in a status that is unacknowledged by our laws as Blacks. That would be our number one grievance, I think, because we're outside. Our jurisdiction is, we were sovereign. So we had a higher jurisdiction than the corporation. So this would be something that we as Indians need to, this would be the beginning of our sovereignty, because it's telling now, this is about overthrowing, well, they didn't actually, when they got independence, they didn't, the corporation was still here, but it wasn't, it was supposed to recognize our sovereignty, and instead, or the sovereignty of the foreigner. Again, when I realize I'm associating Indians too much with the foreigners as I read this, but again, that's because at this point we are no better than the foreigners. We're worse, because the foreigners get more respect than we as American Indians do, right? So we are below even this, so yeah, and I realize I want to correct myself, because I was critiquing the pursuit of, what was it? They are endowed with certain unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. So what I realized is I made a mistake, because foreigners don't have a right to land. Indians do, when it's our landmass. So this actually would work for foreigners. They don't have unalienable rights to our land. That would be their homeland that would provide them that. But while they're here, they do have a pursuit of happiness. I still think liberty is not the best word. Maybe freedom. I think autonomy. So liberty is still a problem. But yes, I don't agree, and I correct myself. I was associating us with this, but really we'd have to create our own version of this, because we do have specific grievances, right? So this kind of document would be us breaking away from and taking our right to create a self-government by people who look like us. Now, that's one thing that the foreigners have always had in their favor in the corporation. The corporation is mostly made up of people that look like the foreigner. That's what we Indians need. Now, we don't want you to just look like us. You have to be about us. So don't try that Iroquois bullshit. Don't try that Moorish bullshit, okay? You can stay in the corporation and do all of that, you know. But yeah, this is the kind of thing that the ancestors are sort of uh, uh, propelling me to look at and to see as a roadmap to our sovereignty. So, quartering large bodies of armed forces, armed troops among us. Again, that doesn't happen too often, but I have seen troops like in, say, Penn Station, just standing there. We're not in wartime. Why are they out there? And that's what this document was saying. Standing armies in times of peace, right here. Let me, I don't want this to be red. I never chose, did I? I don't remember choosing. So let me see. Okay. So kept I just changed it to yellow. What is going on? Oh, at this point, I don't think we have any legislatures. They all work for the corporation. So back then, the people did have real legislatures that were working for them. You know, I believe. I believe. Okay, standing on it. I mean, maybe having these military in the Penn Station is not a whole army, but it does seem like it's some kind of conditioning. Preparing. You know, so, but yes, this one, this would have to definitely be on the list. Probably top of the list. That's what's happening to Indians. That's not happening to anybody else. Well, it is happening to others, but it happened more to us with all the reclassifications to foreign jurisdictions that are foreign to our Constitution. Again, there's no blacks in the Constitution. There's no whites in the Constitution. There's no Negroes in the Constitution. There's no African American. So by us constantly being called these things that are outside of the 1787 Constitution, we are being pulled away from the Constitution. There's no rights for Black people in the original Constitution. We are Indians, not taxed. And every other race is just a free person. They're not Black. They're not Latino American. They're not Asian American. They're just free persons. But in the corporation, they are constantly dividing us. But the problem with that division is that, again, it's outside of the Constitution. If you're going to try to do anything, make sure it's mentioned in the Constitution, because then you're taking us out of contract. We don't even know who we are in a damn contract now. Neither, and you don't, because you purposely made it that way. Corporation. So let me see. See, we would ask that this not happen when we are in our proper persona as Indians. Do not cut off our trade with all parts of the world, because in your version of what happens, that you're saying yourself in your jurisdiction that these are crimes against indigenous people. So that would be very much similar to what it would be if you do it to us. But we're making our own UNDRIP and ADRIP. We don't want yours, because that still leaves you with the authority over us. We have to do our own version of ADRIP or UNDRIP to tell them, well, it's going to have to talk about the lands, as how they were during the time when they created the linguistic map, the American Indian linguistic map. So any Indians that are in those territories, they would have rights to all that land where they stand. they won't be limited like that king was limiting the Indians in that treaty we just read. How it will work for Indians today is that wherever you stand, it's very likely that it's your uh native tribal land. Like I realize even here in New York, I'm still in Algonquin territory. So I don't necessarily have to go back to my beautiful Elizabeth City. My linguistic tribe, this was their territorial land, New York City, and the boroughs of New York. That was all Algonquin. So I, as an Indian, what I would in my as an Algonquin, I would say in my declaration of sovereignty, it would be our declaration. This was our declaration of independence. We were already independent as sovereign, so ours wouldn't be called a declaration of independence. It would be called a declaration of our birthright sovereignty. How about that? That's how it could start. And so Indians, you do your best to find out where your tribal lands were. And if you're still on them, like I am, really technically, again, although I have fallen in love with Pascagoula, North Carolina, in other words, I will be, I am to live anywhere in Algonquin territory tax-free, okay? But on any Indian territory, because we Indians are not going to be taxing each other. This is all our land. But there were territories that were specific to certain tribes. So what we would do once we were aware is we'd have to have inter-Indian affairs, like this thing with the Algonquins and the Iroquois. Somebody has to stand up and make peace. At this point, I don't know what the Iroquois are getting out of the deal. I do think they're getting some kind of payday, because I think they're assisting in the Black narrative. And I think they're assisting in promoting Mongolians and speaking as if they're the original Indians. I think that's what Congress is doing. And I think the Iroquois live in Congress. I really do. It would be, I don't know. I think a lot of Iroquois are in Congress and in public offices. It is, after all, a system that's based on their law of peace. So Britain would want them to have those positions so that Britain can say, see, we are honoring the Indians, although they call themselves Black. But they have positions in our system, and we love them and they love us. And so it's one big happy family. Thank you very much. And fuck all you other Indians. Oh, I mean Blacks, okay? Yeah. So somewhere an Iroquois and an Algonquin have to realize that this kind of bullshit we in, that did not solve our problem. It just blurred the lines. And it's time we talk some real issues. What is it that makes us what made us hate each other? The Iroquois and Algonquin. What made us like natural enemies? What did the Iroquois want? I think they just wanted more territory. That's the only thing I could think of. And the Algonquins had large territory. That's because there were so many of us. Again, it wasn't that we were dominating purposely. We just had that many people speaking the Algonquin language. So it just so happened that seemed to be the main language at some point. That's what it seemed like. And maybe others were break-offs. But I don't understand. I don't think I'll ever I'll try to, but what was the grief between Iroquois and Algonquin? I think it's the little dog mad at the big dog, like a jealousy thing. That's all I can. But for what? Again, Algonquins were they just were a large group. That's all they're guilty of. They weren't trying to dominate. It's just that they had more Algonquin speaking people than Iroquois had of their people. You know, I would really like to know what the beef was, because I really think that Iroquois went more than the extra mile to really help erase Algonquins. And all you really hear about is the Iroquois Confederacy. You know, it's like they are literally they are like the go-to when you speak of Indians. You always hear about Iroquois. So again, I'm just showing that that's a bit of a red flag. It seems like the Algonquins are the ones that I was going to read about the Algonquin Confederacy. It's a little late now to do that. But what I saw was that they mentioned it, but they don't mention who was part of it. Now, when you look at the Iroquois Confederacy, it tells you, it names all of the 6 nations that were part of that. And the Algonquin Confederacy, or is it the Powhatan Confederacy? They don't even name who was part of that confederacy. It's just like that's part of a genocide of some sort. It's a omission. So we don't know who our allies were. They're not saying. But every time you read about the Iroquois, you get Onondaga, what is the other one? Was it Mohawk? I don't know. But you have Tuscarora, the Seneca, I believe it was one of them. So they always name them individually, but when I looked at the Algonquin, they don't say they had about 5 tribes. They don't mention their names from what I saw. But anyway, you could read what's on the screen. We did go over these in the last video, and I'm so tired I don't even feel like going over them again. Let's see. But yeah, I do like this one, and maybe I should do it in a different color. Uh, and yeah, um, I just think this is really, this kind of says in a nutshell what's going on with American Indian. No one has more misnomers than we do, and doing that took us out of our proper status and put us in something that's foreign to our Constitution. So this would be probably top of our Declaration of uh, American Indian Birthright Sovereignty. I think that's what our declaration would be. Declaration of American Indian, copper-colored American Indian Birthright Sovereignty. It's a mouthful, but I think we only use those terms to let to remind these powers who we are in history, but we should let them know that these designations are subject to be changed, or by the American Indian. Like, we might not choose to call ourselves Indian. We might, not choose to. We're just letting them know in history that's who we were, but these designations are subject to change by the authority of the American Indian to self-identify. Well, we could um, just each of us, different. If you know your tribe, you can just adopt it and saying Declaration of Original Algonquin uh, uh, Algonquin speaking Declaration of Original Copper Algonquins birthright sovereignty. So if you know your linguistic stuff, you might put that if you want to So we'll make a general one, but then each tribe can state if they want to be called by their linguistic designation, Algonquin, for instance, or Iroquois, or. But it would tie us with the linguistic map. So it might be a good idea to use those linguistic names like Algonquin. So as an Algonquin, I have uh, sovereignty on all Algonquin territory. And I do have sovereignty on other Indian lands to a degree. And in as much as we Indians create within each state, uh, a sort of where we would deal with each other. We would understand per the linguistic map what territory we're on, and we would have to meet with representatives of that linguistic group to let them know that we come in, why we're on their territory or whatever, something like that. Because that land below us is ours. So we would have digging rights in any part of our linguistic territory. No restrictions. And we would, as part of reparations, we would have to have access to industrial type of machines that we need to drill. We would have schools to train our people. These would all be copper-colored Indians. No one else would be allowed. Because when we were blacks, everyone was allowed. This is strictly for American Indians. It's not that we're excluding people. What we're saying is you have resources in your federal system. We don't have anything because we've been reclassified. So our government is going to have to provide training for us, our own militia. Not that we're looking to use it, but we do want to feel that we got some kind of thing going on. And it's all going to be pivotal on our linguistic territory. Like, again, anywhere in New York or the 5 boroughs, I'm a sovereign Algonquin. For an Iroquois, any place around Lake Erie, I think it is, your territory was there. Now you would have to be okay with your territory. We would have to take some kind of, I guess, account for how many of us are there now. But we would still have to go by the linguistic map. I think, and I don't know if the Iroquois like that linguistic map because they didn't I feel the problem with the Iroquois was that they felt they wanted to dominate on any land that they were on. They weren't happy with their linguistic area. I think that's what their problem was, that they were a small, group, and they wanted more than their share, just like the Moors. They really remind me of Moors, I have to say, in their reach and in their greed. I don't know what else would motivate them to be at war. When you're a smaller linguistic group, why are you warring with the big one? What is the issue? You know, I know I'm not seeing that Algonquins were aggressive toward Iroquois. Iroquois was seen as the most warring confederacy. I read that. So, yeah. So I think something like this would be really our step one toward just establishing our sovereignty. Okay. And again, didn't read all of these, but you can freeze and read. We did go over this in the last video, so I don't know how to read all of it. You know, imposing taxes on us without our consent. Well, that would stop because we're Indians, not taxed, so that's not going to happen. Well, we won't need a jury because we won't have any cases in their system. So that problem solved. We're gonna have our own court, just like the state nationals do. Even the state nationals don't go in federal courts because they don't have jurisdiction over state nationals. Only United States citizens. For abolishing the free system of English laws. Well, we're not English, so we don't do English laws. So this we won't need. But this one, again, this is another one that I think might apply. The plundering of a seas, coast, and a town, destroy the lives of our people. That has to stop. Wherever, on our Algonquin, we would have the highest authorities, unfortunately, and the corporation, they're going to hate that the most. You dominated us long enough. Go home and be big boss. You can't do it on somebody else's land forever. I don't care what King James said. I don't care what he said. He's not my king. He's king of England. And they did all kind of chicanery to wield authority in America that they weren't supposed to do. And the Pope denounced the doctrine of discovery. So just go back home, okay? You want our goods, you pay for our goods. You got enough money. What are you trying to take over for? You got enough money to pay. You know, any monarchy that is trying to own our resources as if we don't have a right to it. Yet there's foreigners here living as sovereigns. Not everybody in America has to have a federal ID, y'all. I don't know if you know that. Only blacks are required. Really required. But there are, I'm going to say, religious groups that don't have to have federal ID. No, they don't. And they often use cash. So they don't want a paper trail. They can get away with not having an ID. They get away with it. Yet we are treated as Indians that we better not be found without an ID. Well, when you find it, it's going to be in a garbage. I don't even have a federal ID anymore. Right now, again, I have a state national, which will do until I establish myself as an Indian, that I am first birthright holder. Okay. Yes, this is another thing. In every stage of these oppressions, we have petitions for redress. We always marching on Washington, marching for justice, Black Lives Matter. We're not black. But we're doing that because it's Indians who have been reclassified and don't know who they are. But we're petitioning for redress in most humble terms. Our repeated our repeated petitions have been answered only by repeated injury. Hello, the hello. More injury. How many times do we see Indians being choked out on camera? It's like, didn't we just march against this stuff? But yet You have anti-Asian violence pronto, Johnny on the spot, and they're not even getting attacked as much as we are. That would definitely have to be. So let's do that in green. Oh, baby, yes. Inclusion and declaration. Rules that can firm reliance on protection of defined property. We mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortune. So this is what Indians may have to do with each other. We have to create bonds with that we know we are not going to betray an Indian. We've already all been betrayed. We should not want to betray each other. So I think a lot of the trials we saw were mock trials. Yeah. So, like for instance, the whole Trump thing. You know that is he really gonna get in trouble? I think not. I think not. But yeah, when it comes to our people being gunned down, that's murder, right? Because they were assumed to be carrying when they weren't in so many instances. And so they were basically unjustly killed. And the trial would let the murderers go free. So that might apply to us. So again, we do this in a peaceful manner because look, we're talking the Declaration of Independence, but now we're going to borrow from the Declaration of Independence for Americans and Indians to declare their sovereignty and separation from the federal system and the civil system. Civil system didn't do us no good either. They were just a set of laws that, again, able to be retracted by Congress. So don't talk to me about no fucking civil rights. They do not stick. They're like cotton candy. Don't talk to me about no damn civil rights. You better be talking constitutional rights, if any, or sovereign Indian status. We don't want no fucking civil rights. Stop it. Wake up. Even when you get them, again, they don't stick. They are not permanent. Congress is your supreme authority, and they decide with unalienable rights. It is already known that these rights shall not be taken away. So anyway, I think we'll leave it here for now. And I know it's probably a long one. It's 2:42. A little longer than I would like, but thank you for watching. I wish you peace, joy, health, wealth, your land back, your identity back, and all the great things. Until next time, be and stay well. Thank you. The wrong button, but till next time.